Good morning and welcome, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee.
Good morning.
We are delighted to have you here.
It's an honour to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. You have written several books by now, for instance, about weight loss, stress, and you were actually here 2 years ago after writing a book about health. How come happiness this time?
Yeah, because I've been a doctor for 22 years. And one of the things we miss in medicine is the strong link between happiness and health. So a lot of the things that people are trying to cut down on, let's say sugar or alcohol, a lot of the things that affect our lifestyle and the way we feel, I've realized that they are downstream consequences of our happiness. If we don't feel good in ourselves, we drink more, we spend more time scrolling, we spend more time eating sugar. And so I realized that the patients who I would see who were happier, they were naturally healthier. Now, it's quite obvious. I think people go, if I feel healthy, I'm going to feel happy. But if you look at the scientific research, it shows very clearly that happy people are healthier. And at this time of year, as it's getting colder, people are being exposed to bugs. There was a really interesting study done a few years ago that showed if you expose everyone to the same virus, let's say rhinovirus that causes the common colds, happier people get sick 3 times less than people who don't feel happy. So that's why, as a doctor, it's really important to me to write a book on happiness.
That's amazing. I believe that the common perception is that happiness is something that comes automatically if you're wealthy, if you're successful, whereas you teach us it's a trainable skill.
Yeah,
right?
You've just hit a really key point. Happiness is a skill that anybody can get better at if you know how to develop it. So we know, don't we, if we want bigger muscles, we go to the gym. But we don't think about happiness in the same way. And what I've done in this book is simplify happiness right down into its 3 core ingredients, which are alignment, which basically means, am I being out there in the world the person who I really am? Contentment, which are the small things that we can do that make us feel calm and at peace. And then also control. And control is very important, particularly now. Right, we're hearing about all kinds of nasty things that are happening all over the world. Yeah. And some people say, well, how can I think about happiness now? Well, I say it's even more important you think about happiness. And we know that people who have a sense of control in their lives, right, let's say with a little morning routine or a ritual, you actually are happier, you're healthier, you live longer, and it makes you better able to deal with the stresses that are going on in the world. And Pia, you mentioned a very important point. We think it's something that just happens. I fell into that trap, right? I have a lot of the metrics of societal success. I'm a doctor. I have 5 international best-selling books. I have a very popular podcast that I host. But I realized a few years ago I wasn't actually very happy. I fell into the trap that more things, more status would make me happy. Yeah. And I've had all those things, and I've realized actually they don't make you happy. So there's lots of simple exercises in the book that don't cost any money that people can start to do to help them realize what's important. One of my favorite ones is in chapter 1, where I say success and happiness are 2 different things. I ask people to imagine they're on their deathbeds, look back on their lives, what are 3 things they will want to have done? And then I help them create weekly happiness habits that will give them that happy ending. And the truth is, Pia, we know what people say at the end of their lives because nurses tell us, I wish I'd worked less. Yeah. I wish I'd spent more time with my friends and family. I wish I'd lived my life and not the life that other people expected of me.
It would be so nice to speak about this whole book, but the time is limited. Let's talk about 3 things that you write about. For instance, you say, write your happy ending. What's the meaning of that?
Write your happy ending is this exercise I just mentioned, which is a lot of us don't think about what's really important in life. We just wake up in the morning, we go on our email, we watch the news, we go to work, we're in reactive modes. But we need to step outside our life to reflect. And it doesn't have to be just once a year on holiday. We can have 10, 15 minutes a day where we go for a walk or do some meditation or sit with a cup of coffee without looking at our phone. And it allows us to assess our lives. So that happy ending in the book is that deathbed exercise that I just spoke about that actually many people I know find really, really empowering. And I'll be honest with you, the exercise in chapter 1 has transformed my own life. I realize now that more success will not bring me happiness. It's time in nature. It's time with my wife and my children. And I have a little note on my fridge in my kitchen of the 3 things I need to do each week that will give me my happy ending.
Do those things vary, or?
They do. They change from time to time. And you don't have to be perfect with those 3 things. The point is that if you write it down, so for me, it's 5 meals a week with my wife and children where I'm undistracted, 1 long walk in nature a week, and recording an episode of my podcast, because I know those 3 things, please.
No, but that's not asking very much.
It's not asking much, but if we don't take the time to write these things down and think about them, we find our life passes us by. And then we realize, why are we getting stressed? Why are we burnt out? And Pia, another important point here is that stress levels are going through the roof at the moment. People are feeling burnt out. In the UK, 88% of the adult workforce have experienced some level of burnout in the past 2 years. In Sweden, 1 in 8 adults are on antidepressant medication, right? There is a real problem out there in society. And what I've tried to do in this book is simplify it and go, it's not that difficult. It doesn't matter who you are or what's going on in your life. I know that the tools in this book are going to help people, and that's why I spent so long writing it.
So you say, if I read this book and I actually do what you tell me to do, would I be at least on my way to gain happiness?
100%. And the beautiful thing is, Pia, people don't have to do everything, right? We don't need to do all the things in the book.
Okay.
Even if we do 1 or 2 things, we're going to be a little bit happier than we were without it. So I passionately believe that everyone can be happier than they are. And me, at this stage in my life, at 46 years old, I can tell you I've never felt this good. I feel happy, I feel calm, I feel content. And it's primarily because of all the tools that I've written in this book.
Oh, that's great. I believe you're aware that Sweden has a new professorship dedicated entirely to the subject of happiness, well-being and welfare. It's being established right now. And when you take part of the latest science and the research, what would you say are the most surprising results regarding happiness, of course?
Surprising results, I think there's a really nice study which looked at nuns over the course of their life. And what's really interesting is I think people will think, yeah, you know what, if I'm in good health, I'm going to feel happier, right? But they don't realize that happier people are healthier. And these nuns were looked at across their entire life. And what was wonderful is these nuns all had the same lifestyle, the same diet, the same movement, the same sleep, because they were all living together. Yeah. And when they tracked the nurses, they saw that the happier nurses, the ones who had a more positive mood, they lived longer and they were considerably healthier. So this is the key point which I think we don't get across, and this is what the research is supporting, that happier people are healthier. And then going back to my original point, happiness is not something that just happens to us when our boss is nice to us, when our work goes well, when we've completed all our emails. No, happiness is something you work on every day. And when you know how to work on it, it becomes really, really fun.
Oh, this is extremely interesting. And I think, I believe a lot of us are now eager to start our journey to a larger happiness.
Well, I hope so. It's easier than people think, honestly. It's easier than you think.
It's easier. That sounds wonderful. Thank you very much for visiting us, Dr. Rangan Chatterjee. We are very grateful and happy to have you here.
It's always a pleasure. Thank you.